Oh,
All right, with Nevin Boila, War Couples is the short film. It's 3 minutes long. Play at the comedy festival. You are the director, you're the writer, and you're also the lead. You're the lead in the film as well, right?
I'll give it a team effort. I don't
But
want to
I'm
extra.
sorry, you co-lead, I guess. But you're one of the. Like
Yeah,
you,
of
you
course.
you wrote this script for you to play the main character.
Yeah, it was one of those times where I wanted to add some comedy to it, and I felt that, why not write it? And then I had Christian come on board, and we kind of just hit it off.
Where did you know Christian before the filming?
No, actually, I reached out some people I knew, at one of my agents, and that's where I met Christian at that time. And we had the discussion of my idea was that I wanted to try to create a comedy that kind of was, obviously hitting in a short time frame. It was kind of like a 1 day shoot, and I wanted to do some type of comedy that was, something out of the ordinary. Christian read the script, he loved it, and we just hit it off. It was a long day, but I'm glad that he was part of it, and yeah, it was a great team effort for all overall.
And well, it's a great film. So I'm watching your film for the first time, and it gets passed to me, right, from the
Mhm.
original people who watch it,
Yeah.
and they're like, they say guaranteed acceptance, right? So I'm like, okay, 3 minutes comedy. So I'm watching your film, and I'm like, is this the wrong category? I'm like, because I'm watching the first minute, it's like, this is a comedy, and then tone wise, you nailed it because it's like, as an audience member, we've seen this before, right? We've seen this situation before in action movies or war movies, and then all of a sudden you flip the script, and it's like, oh, it's about this couple having this squabble, right? At the
Yeah.
worst time.
Yeah, it was, when making a short like that, this can't be just like a joke after joke after joke pun. I mean, you have maybe three chances to make that. And I always felt that, we saw this generic style where it's just like, the epic battle about to happen,
Yeah.
something's about to go down. And I'm like, why don't we just do like literally the complete opposite of these soldiers that are really in this little couple relationship while the legit team is fighting over on other parts. And I felt that was just great. And I was happy that, Christian came on board when he looked at it because obviously, to have that type of couple type of relationship in the time that we had, it went really organically. And yeah, it was I just to my day, when I keep watching that, I'm like, I can't believe it worked.
Oh, it worked. And the thing is, though, it's got rewatchability because the jokes are so like nuanced in terms of like the look, the gel, all these kind of nuanced kind of lines where like you don't even know what they're like. The first time you're watching it, it's like you're laughing, but it's like, what did he say? Because it's like it's just so funny. And then you watch it again, and it's like, oh, it's like, and then you're laughing, even you're laughing again because it's like you got exactly what their argument is about, which is dumb. Right?
Yeah, I mean,
It's a
I
dumb
mean,
argument.
the way I was trying to write it was to not as just as an audience member to be able to go back and rewatch it. I know there's films out there that you watch at one and done.
Yeah,
My style, or the way I was writing it, was trying to make sure the jokes were enough that you can go back and look at it in a different perspective, knowing what you knew the moment before, after watching it again,
yeah.
and especially trying to put the height of it at the ending where kind of was game over for both of them. So yeah, it was it was a little bit a lot of drafts on my end to make sure that those jokes kind of in the characters themselves can actually fluent correctly, and therefore we would have the ability to ideally, hopefully, knock on wood, make it be rewatchable for people who want to
Yeah.
have a little quick joy.
But you know what the thing about the film too is that it rings true because it's like it's the sniper and his, I don't even, what is they call it? Like he's the guider, the
He's like, yeah,
snipers.
guider, scouter, and that
You
type
know,
of zone.
and they spend so much time together, right? If the sniper and the guide, like they'll spend hours upon hours and like laying down, right? Because
Yeah,
waiting for.
I mean, for me, there, I mean, there's a lot of generic films and movies out there, like Jarhead, for example.
Yeah,
It's a
perfect.
great film
Yeah,
on that one.
yeah,
There is a lot of examples of that type of relationship, not that relationship on War Couples,
yeah,
but the relationship of a sniper and a scouter type of zone. So obviously, the way in this scene was played out was to make sure to have that type of feeling and environment.
yeah,
And the biggest issue with that when writing it was definitely the location of it. So obviously, we filmed this in Los Angeles, and we needed to make sure that obviously the location that we were shooting for was approved, but also making sure that hits that type of environment. Because if you
Yeah,
we filmed this in some random place, it wouldn't really give that essence
of
of that
course.
type of war zone. So
Yeah,
yeah.
it needs to be real, right? Like
Oh
if
yeah,
that's
definitely.
what if it's like that's the thing about comedy, right? Where like I get to see these short films, and it's like you gotta be in reality. It's like that's what makes you laugh, right?
Yeah,
And it's like
definitely.
and it's all about the production value. Your sound design's fantastic. Whoever did your
Oh
sound
yeah,
design did a great job because it's based in this reality. That's what makes it funny, right?
yeah, definitely. And I gotta thank Spencer. He was our cinematographer on that shoot. He really gave us those he found a great location to help us out on that. And also this basically the camera views of what he was giving his eye on that. It's a very simplistic layout, but it was very impactful
Of
because
course,
of how it was illustrated, not only by obviously by me and Christian working together, but also how our sound and Spencer's guide in regards to cinematography of making that type of scene more of a war zone than while you're in Los Angeles.
because you
So
got other than the opening shot, which is like, is there a symbolism of the cross? Because that's the first thing we see in the movie is the cross.
yeah, the cross was actually an interesting shot on Spencer's end. He spot we our location was in a very remote area that we got approval for, and when we got up there, Spencer was doing some B-roll shots, and that was actually one of the things because I actually edited World Cup rules. So when I was going back through all that stuff, I saw some of these shots that Spencer was doing. I thought that was just a great way to bring more of that intensity coming in the moment, the beginning of it. So again, that's the point of what the comedy was that that intensity keeps going up, and then it just completely just goes a 180
Yeah,
when they start having that fight about shampoo and the most
yeah.
stupidest things you
Well,
can
their hair.
imaginable.
Yeah,
Yeah, about the hair, and it's like it's just the most stupidest things in the most intense moments in life. And then obviously you get the ending where it's just like, okay, how are these two idiots still in this epic military battle? So ideally this was a vision that kind of was what I'm still doing right now is like writing a series with these two individuals together.
oh, gotcha.
Yeah, so this was kind of just like a pre-run of kind of seeing how that story would fan out, and it worked really well, and I'm very happy about it.
Concept.
Pardon?
Your film's a proof of concept.
Yeah,
Like it.
that
Yeah.
is correct. Yeah,
So
exactly.
we live in these weird times, 2024,
Yeah,
where like people get offended by everything. Like comedians don't even do universities anymore, right? Were
yeah.
you worried? I don't even know if you were. Were you worried about like that the gay community would be offended by that they're fighting about
No,
hair
it was
products?
just no, it was
Okay.
just a joke. I mean, it's comedy. I mean, there was no criticizing that at all. Not even there was no indication, obviously, what their sexual preferences were. It was just more of just two really, you have this idea of masculinity of like these, really deep voices and
Yeah.
like, all right, we're ready to go on, and then you have these little more childish voice acting. Like it's not fair. And then they go
Yeah.
back and forth. So I wasn't concerned at all because it wasn't at all display representing that. We just wanted to make sure that we gave people a laugh on the
Yeah.
relationship that these two, I'm gonna say personally, these two idiots
Yeah.
were a part of in that time.
No, that you know, I'm glad you answered that just because you never know, right? Because everybody's
Yeah, no, no, of course. We live in a time, like you said, where everything is subjective in comedy, and it's important that people should know that sometimes comedy is just comedy to make people
comedy's
laugh.
comedy, right?
Yeah.
And the thing about comedy is that you got to stretch the envelope. You got to see how far you can go, right?
Yeah, of course. I mean, there's obviously there's limits, but I mean, if you're really a daredevil, but the truth is that when I wrote that, there was no concern in the back of my head, like, oh, I was hoping this could happen. It was more when I was writing, I was like, okay, what can I do to make myself laugh? If I'm able to make myself laugh, I'm like, this is funny. Let me put it up there and see what it is. And everyone who was on set and everyone, who watched it always enjoyed it. There was no knock on wood so far, there's no
Yeah.
criticism on that one. And we're really happy by the fact that everyone just finds enjoyment in watching it.
And the way they fight, like these these army guys, like to get to the levels that they're at with a sniper, they fight like like children. They fight like
Yeah.
they're bad fighters. Let's just put it that way.
Yeah, that's when actually that was one of the biggest things I was talking to Christian on set, and even prior to that is like when we were doing those scenes, obviously I told him it's like, hey, listen, when in the beginning, it's like you're gonna treat it like a real war. You're gonna treat it like things about to go happen. And then I told him when we hit to that dialogue, I want you to do that 180 and be like a 5-year-old who
Yeah,
just got lost their ice cream cone. And you have to be because when you do that it's a little difficult when you're starting out being playing that because you never really do that when you get older, so you have to like amplify it and make it just expand as the 5-year-old and start crying and pewing. So we did a little rounds of that and Christian just hit it really just right off right away, and I was
yeah,
very happy about it because when you have like a co-star help out and it helps me on that end to receive that moment from him. So it just helps everyone out when everyone's in sync in that. Because if one person kind of half fakes it, it kind of just degrades the whole zone. So
sure, yeah.
the child version of it, Christian hit it off, and then because of him, I was able to hit it off. And then overall, our team around us always just had a great laugh with it
Yeah.
too.
Well, I like it's sort of like the you and him, Christian, need to be in the same world. You have to be making the same film, right? So
Yeah, exactly.
tone-wise, you got to know what you're talking, what how you're performing the scene, I guess, right?
Yeah, I've done plays in the past and some shorts in the past where you have an actor or an actress who really were just playing themselves, kind of like just saying the dialogue. There was nothing really underneath it, or in other words, glib. And it's difficult just as an actor to kind of receive what they're doing if they don't really understand the story. And that's one thing that I was worried when I was starting new people to come on board for the shorts. But again, Christian did a good job. He was able to just understand exactly what the story was, and we were able to just hit it off from the get-go.
Yeah. No, you make a key point because it's like I always wondered why, like, I'm sure they do, but it's like that's the key to acting. It's like you gotta know storytelling, right?
Yeah, I mean, for me, just you got to know. No, yeah, you got to know the complexity of that character. You just can't memorize the lines. You can't just say,
Exactly.
"Okay, I'm gonna scream now." But it's like, well, you're gonna scream. Why? Do you know why you're gonna scream? And the generic questions like any actor, actress know, moment before, moment after, characters. You need the character breakdowns, relationships as well. So there's a lot of work into it, and you can tell when someone does their homework when they go and it says action, you're actually on scene. You can see them doing the choices that not only are unique, but they're also justified in the script. And
Yeah.
that is something that, some people want to do that work. Some people don't want to do that work. It's their choice. Some people just like to play themselves, nothing against it. But when we were doing stuff like War Couples, where it's not really in our characters as an actors to play those type of childish type of things since we're five, it requires a little more work on both our ends, meaning Christian's end, to make sure that we're able to create it enough that convince everyone. The idea is if you're able to convince a 5-year-old on it, then you can convince anyone. So that was kind of our goal to convince 5-year-olds to that we're childish. Now, of course, we don't want any 5-year-olds to watch it, but that is our kind of our goal set when we try to do that 180 flip to be able to create that childless version of
So
those
I
characters.
brought up the sound design, who did the sound design in post production, kind of to make the reality of that they're in a war kind of.
I actually did that. So I worked on the programs I use, Adobe, After Effects, Audition, if anyone knows those programs. But yeah, I did the sound design on that one. That was actually my first time doing sound, I would say, on that end. Yeah,
How was the experience?
it's a lot of work.
Yeah.
It's a learning experience. I mean, like for me, it's again, my stuff at that time I didn't, nothing was really going on, and I wanted to keep making stuff. So instead of kind of sitting and waiting and hoping and praying, it was like, okay, well, I want to make this my own. And then when we got it done, I was like, okay, well, I got to edit it correctly. Then I got to learn how to do sound. So yeah, the sound when that was probably the most difficult to do. Just making sure that it fit with the story and it kept amplifying it, especially at that end where it was kind of game over. That for me was difficult because I had to figure out how to kind of make that ending as epic as possible, while kind of distorting the whole relationship. So I'm like, well, what if I do that ending and what is out there and try to make it happen? So yeah, it took some time, but over time I got really good at it. You gotta learn.
You did a great, like you said, you made it real. You did a great job.
Yeah, I appreciate it.
So you're acting, obviously you're in every scene, and then so you're kind of like like you said, you kind of alluded that the setup, your directing setup is because you're serving the story, and it's like you don't want to get overcomplicated. So you kind of just have the one course shot between the two of them, right? And you
Yeah.
don't really move the camera that much, and then you kind of have one shots like shots head on, and then you have the side shots as well. They're the other actor's point of view, and it works like so.
Yeah, it's simplistic, but also, I mean, stuff like that, when you're doing such a simple shots and not much of a arts type of style of cinematography,
Yeah,
it has to be very character driven. It has to be and has to be very a good enough script for both actors to be able to create that character itself that audiences can be attached to. Because if you're just having a generic conversation when you have basically three shots, people are going to be tuned off almost immediately because they're going to be bored. So that is one thing I want to make sure, because that was another one of the biggest issues was that, okay, if we're going to make this location, we don't really have the opportunity to do as much creativity in regards to how to film it. We got to
yeah,
make sure that the dialogue and the chemistry that we were working on set
yeah.
was amplified to a greater stance. So we have the ability to get audiences be more attached to the story rather than kind of the pretty shots out there. I mean, it's
Yeah,
good,
no,
great
it doesn't.
shots. Yeah.
Your film doesn't need it, right? Like it's yeah.
Yeah, you don't, I mean, I'm glad you didn't need it. Man,
No, but it
I'm
takes
happy with it.
away if you get too complicated with your direction. It just takes away from the story, right? Because people lose focus, right?
Yeah,
So
that's correct. I mean, I also there's limitations on that, I guess. I mean, if you keep that's on the vice versa, and that's true. If you have an area where you can shoot in so many angles, it will like a good example, like one of those like action films when people are fighting and it's like cutting to like 30 different takes at the same time, it just gets too hectic for people to back off. But for our zone, since we only had like three shots, it was more opposite where it was like, okay, these are what shots we have. Now we got to make sure that the story and the characters and basically the work that we do as both actors is enough for audience to be attached themselves to. Not only that, but also, the sound, the music,
yeah,
making sure that everything up, lighting, coloring, was all affiliated with that. Because I'm a big fan of environments. If you don't get a good environment, people get tuned off right away. And it also helps us as actors to be able to be in that type of world to get us more into it. So I mean, one of the biggest wins in that whole entire shoot was just that location.
yeah,
Because you wouldn't guess that was in the middle of Los Angeles, but it was.
yeah. Well, I get that's the magic of movies, right? So
Yeah, mum's the word on that.
what did you think we send the audience to you? What did you think? What our audience had to say about your film?
I really liked it. It was it was all positive. And what I love about it was that they were basically honest with it. And I love that because one of the biggest issues I don't like is people just, especially when we're starting, when we're filmmakers and we're actors and actresses, whatever we are, we like to hear feedback from people. And most time people, when they watch something, they just move on, especially online digital world. We're kind of like YouTube, TikTok, Instagram. If you put something out there, most of the time, no one's really going to get a response to you. So you don't know
We'll
if
give
they
you the
like it.
thumbs up, right? Like,
Yeah, I mean, that itself, it's that's cool, but we like to hear actually dialogue from people saying what they like about it specifically. And it's a little unfortunate when for us because we don't know if it's good or bad or anything like that. So the feedback structure that you guys have and what we received was actually a gem because it just showed us genuine people who, first of all, let us know that they actually watched it all the way to the end. Because you could just go online and just put a thumbs up on something and then
yeah,
move on to your life. So the fact that they watched it all the way to the end was great. But the second thing, more importantly, was just overall their opinions of it were all positive, and they all had detailed expressions of what they loved about it, and it really just brightened all of our days here.
yeah, it's great. It's a great little 3 minute film. It's a no brainer acceptance at any kind of comedy festival. So I hope it's serving you well.
Oh yeah, it is. It's helping us out a lot. Again, it's a little pitch stone. So now we saw what happened, and now we're just expanding on that, and then knock on wood, see where that happens.
So you've written other versions of this story, like you've done.
Yeah, TV series type of style. So ideally that I'm gonna probably say halfway done on that, but we're just finishing up the loose ends and then we're gonna take it out and then see how that works.
So there's like a half hour kind of
Yeah, correct.
formats within with these characters, or
Yeah,
like,
with these characters, it's a half hour within these characters. It takes basically that same type of comedy, but just more expands it out to that whole entire world that they're going through. And the same type of comedy humors on there. I've been sending it out to people and then also colleagues of mine, and we're all just having a laugh when we're writing it because again, you don't when you're in that type of zone, you got to find something that's like the complete opposite of what the scenario is. And we just love the idea of having two epic, brave soldiers suddenly become these very, children at war type of style.
so
So
yeah, there's a lot to work. I guess
yeah,
it's like a parody of the army kind of world, I guess. And
yeah, exactly.
yeah,
Exactly. I mean, like that old television series like MASH, that was kind of one of our inspirations for it. And we're just gonna keep we're almost done with it and we're looking forward to bringing it out there for everyone else to
do
see.
you watch MASH?
Yeah, I do. I mean, it's an old, old television series,
Yeah,
but it did give me a lot of ideas in regards to our story because obviously that's kind of a comedy as well.
because
And
the two doctors, I guess, in MASH are like they're smart goofballs, right?
yeah, that was kind of the reason why it was like for us when I was finishing up that short, uh, I watched the match because I think at that time I was at my parents' location, house, and they were watching it, and I was seeing those scenes, and it kind of, a spark came in my head. It was like, well, maybe there's something more to that, and then that brought the idea of war couples expanding me on it
Yeah.
because there is, from my point of view, there's more of a story between these two and their relationship on more on what overall their world is in that type of war zone.
Yeah. So you brought it up before. When I first watched your film, I thought of Jarhead, right? Just like that kind of like these intimate kind of couples, right? Like
Yeah,
not.
I wanted that type of relation because what was great about Jarhead just because of there it was basically the story of these two men. I mean that everything else was more outsider, but it was really focused on these two men
Yeah.
through that war. And I wanted that same concept applied to war couples, but obviously make that the comedy structure, which worked out really well.
And funny enough, those two actors became brothers-in-law, right? Because he married his sister.
Yeah, no, that was weird. I was like, well, yeah, because I didn't know that until I started like digging around because I was when I was writing War Couples, I started just, get a little more inspiration, did some research on some of these films that kind of was triggering me on. And I started seeing that relationship come. I'm like, wow, I wonder if that's gonna happen to me.
Yeah, it's funny. All right,
Yeah.
man. Well, I'd love to see what you do next with this series. I want to see it. So make sure you keep in touch and send it our way. I want to because I think there's like obviously there's a great concept here, and you guys are both great. You and your co-star are fantastic in the film. So
Yeah, it's a great team, great effort. Christian, Spencer, we all appreciate all the feedback from anyone and knock on wood, we'll see what happens the next couple of months. Okay.
all right. Well, like I said, it's a no-brainer acceptance. So the film should do this film itself should do well on the festival circuit, get you some awards, get you some acclaim, and then the next step is the TV show, I guess, right?
Yep. That's baby steps.
All right, man. Well, let's
All
talk
right.
soon.
All right. Thank you, man. Appreciate